Hello, everyone. And I don't know exactly what greetings to give out. We have a number of, time zones coming in together to create this vibrant space of poetry at what we call the Hearth Within. So, welcome, everyone. So, good afternoon, good evening, good morning to you, wherever you are. And we're so glad that you're here with us, to celebrate this wonderful banquet of poems that we have lined up today. Knocking at the World is an idea of, celebrating poems in books that appear in the last few months that we have been living through. And this is also a kind of community building exercise where we try to bring poets together and put them in connection with one another and to live out these connections in our creative work in the future to come. So thank you very much that you accepted our invitation to be with us this evening. And we are very, very proud and honored to have 6 fabulous books being celebrated here. Abhay's Monsoon, which is here technically chronologically because Abhay's name begins with A, but also I think very semantically true because we are into monsoon and things begin with monsoon for us. So we have Kashiana's Woman by the Door, a wonderful book which was launched at Ananta recently. We have Paresh's Now a Poem, Now a Forest, and a very exquisitely crafted book by Red River. We have Pramila's, wonderful book being celebrated here today. We are not a museum. We have Raphael, and we have, of course, Zena's Sanctum. So thank you very much for being with us this evening. And I would like to call upon Professor Jaideep Sarangi to deliver the formal welcome address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. And it's a wonderful evening from India. I think we are based in several time zones and 6 amazing books that from where the real poets will be reading. And the idea behind the program is to showcase the world poetry in a very brief period of time. We have 2 voices from Africa, 2 from the US, and 2 from India located, and 6 wonderful books. And Bashudara has already given a words for that. And poetry is like knocking at the door. Poetry is something that bridges the hearts of the nations as well as the nationalities from different perspectives. And if we look into the cover art of all 6 books, they are unique. They're unique by their deliberations and their messages and their actually signals to the world. How will the world read them from different cultures? I think poetry is something that is the most happening word these days. And Hearth Within is dedicated for revival, for poetry tradition. I would say poetry is a part of activism. Poetry is a part of daily living. Poetry through which we connect each other. Poetry is Monsoon. Poetry is that door. Poetry is a new poem. Poetry is something which is not a museum, but is a living word. Poetry is Sanctum. And 6 poets of today, they will be reading from their latest collection, and it will be a reservoir, I think, of different ideas, confluence of ideas, sending messages to new poets, budding poets of different countries, from different backgrounds. And the idea is to bring poetry at the heart of the world. The world is looked through or taken care of by the art of poetry. And if we look into the craft is different, but always very intriguing, and some very amazing, interesting lines that we read in these collections. Just one I can quote: the tears, water raining into an empty cup, drifting snowflakes. I restore the fragileness of my wedding bell. What a wonderful wedding bell that is waiting for us. Our first poet today is K. Abhay Kumar. And Abhay is a very known figure for all of us. And he's a diplomat and a very prolific diplomat. But his another identity is he is a world poet. And he is the author of 9 poetry collections, including The Magic of Madagascar, The Magic of Madagascar. And he is anthologized worldwide and one of the important poetic voices from India. Over to Abhay Kumar for reading a few poems from Monsoon. Abhay.
Okay, so Monsoon is just one poem. It's not poems. It's just one poem of 150 stanzas.
Okay,
And
then yeah.
my name is Abhay K. It's not K. Abhay Kumar. That's it's just Abhay K. Okay, so I'll just mm, you know read a few stanzas from this. So this poem follows the path of monsoon, as monsoon originates near Madagascar, and it travels all the way north to the Himalayas, and so it's basically an uh, taking Kalidasa's Ritu Samhara beyond the borders of India, and sorry, Kalidasa's Meghdut, the cloud messenger, and it's it's inspired, of course, by Meghdut, which I have translated recently. I wake up with your thoughts. How much time do I have?
Have 10 to 12 minutes.
10 to 12 minutes. Okay. I wake up with your thoughts, your fragrance reaching me all the way from the Himalayas to the island of Madagascar, brought by monsoon from the blessed Himalayan valley to the hills of Antananarivo on its return journey. I dream of you every night. The shimmering dawn snatches my dreams, but the morning bridge comes whispering your name, permeating my being with your thoughts, only your thoughts, my love. I'm far away in this Indian Ocean island, yearning for your touch, gazing at the moon, Venus, and myriad star constellations, hoping you are gazing at them too. I wait for the monsoon to be born, to send you sights, sounds, and aroma of this island, redolent of vanilla, cloves, ylang ylang, and herbs of various kinds. O monsoon, wave-like mass of air, the primeval traveler from the sea, to the land in summer, go to my love in the paradisical Himalayan valley. For eons, you have ferried traders across the Indian Ocean, guided the legendary Sindbad and Vasco da Gama, and brought wealth and joy to millions. Your absence, alas, brings famine and death. The bounty of Indra offered through rains, at times just a spell of scattered showers, at times unceasing torrents for days at a stretch, wetting passion of lovers with your thunder drums. Lovesick and far away from my beloved, I beseech you to take my message to her, along with amorous squeals of Vasa parrots, reverberating songs of Indri Indri, the sound of sea waves crashing on coral beaches, mating calls of the golden mantelas, mellifluous chirps of the red foddy, sonorous songs of the Malagasy kukul, the sight of eyes conjoined blissfully at midnight in Masaola rainforests, fierce fossas mating boisterously at Karindi, colorful turtles frolicking in the emerald sea, Yellow comet moths swarming Ranumafana, radiated tortoises carrying galactic maps, Somanga sunbirds sipping nectar, white sifakas dancing in herd, ring-tailed lemurs feasting on baobab flowers, Vaza parrots courting their mates, painted butterflies fluttering over fresh blossoms, blooming jacarandas painting the sky purple, travelers' palms stretching their arms in prayer, baobabs meditating like ascetics turned upside down, giraffe-necked red beagles necking their mates, fragrant champa flowers, galaxies on the earth. Colorful Mahafali tombs dotting the countryside, erotic Sakalava sculptures arousing longings in mind. Innumerable sculpted rock temples at Isal, each one a homage to Lord Pashupatinath. The rich dialect of Old Gujarati, still spoken here with great zeal. O Monsoon, I urge you to carry these to my love in the pristine Himalayan valley. As you glide over the Indian Ocean, gently caressing her curvaceous body, the humpback whales will amuse you with their mating songs. Reaching Réunion orbit Le Piton de Neige, gently kiss its snowy peaks, then soothe the smoldering Le Piton de la Fournaise. It's been raising fires since centuries. Absorb the bleed spirit of Mafate, celebrate the freedom of the maroon slaves, then rest for a while in the picturesque caldera and listen to the soothing sound of Silaus. Offer solace to the welling bride at Bois de la Mairie. Mascarene paradise flycatcher will court you. Tropic bird with its mermaid tail will mesmerize you. Taste the honeydew rum before departing Reunion. Upon arriving in idyllic Mauritius, you will be greeted by Le Morne Brabant, home to rare Boucle d'Oriel and Mandrinette flowers. Rejuvenate them with your rain showers. Black River gorges resembling an enchantress, and the seven-colored princes Chamarel will captivate your heart. Frolic with the pink pigeon before they vanish forever from the earth. Fondle giant lilies at Pamplemousse. Gorge yourself on the rich Mauritian rum. Steal a glance at the sensuous beauties reclining on the white sand along the blue ocean. Help the parasailers soar high at Ile aux Cerfs. Listen to the sound of the giant waves crashing against the volcanic cliffs at La Roche, Qui Pleure. Pray at Ganga Talao, brimming with the holy water. Bow in reverence to Shiva, seek his blessings. May your journey ahead be smooth. Let the serpent around his neck not scare you. Beware, his third eye may burn you to cinders. If open in a fit of rage, your journey would end here in Mauritius, leaving millions awaiting your auspicious arrival, devoid of rains, devoid of life, devoid of joy. Then I'll read a little bit too about, because Joydeep is in Kolkata, so I'll read the Kolkata part, and Paresh is in Mumbai, so I'll read a bit of uh, of Mumbai part. So, how much more I have time? How much more?
You have all the time. We have all
Okay,
the
okay,
time
all
for
right.
poetry. Please go ahead.
Thank you. In May, the white sand will glitter like diamonds to welcome you in Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Lovebirds will head towards Diglipur caves, their sweet moans mixing with the sound of your rains. Scops owl, black baza, narcondam, hornbill, blue-eared kingfisher, Nicobar megapod will make eyes at you. Zarawas, Onge, Sentiles, and great Andamanese will sway in ecstasy. Advancing gradually over the Bay of Bengal, you will enter the sensuous Sundarbans. Give her a new lease of life with your revitalizing raindrops. Goran, Sundari, Geva, Keura will bloom on your arrival. Bright colors of aura and golpatta will lure you. Tigers, Brahmini kites, wine snakes will leap with joy with Bon Bibi and Dakshin Ray. Both Bon Bibi and Dakshin Ray will bless you. You would like to stay here longer, but the city of joy has savory surprises awaiting you. Relish jhal muri, moong dal khichdi, bangan bhaja, ghoti garam, and hilsa fry. The whole city will come out in the Maidan to celebrate your arrival with great pomp. Children will spend the day playing football. Join them and help them score a goal or two. Ring the bells at the Dakshineshwar Kali Mandir. Pass gently over Howrah Bridge and Victoria Memorial. Caress the sensuous Yakshinis pining for your touch. Rave at Sonagachi and Park Street before heading north. Fill the river Falgu with your heavy downpour. Help the ancestors traverse to the next world. Sprinkle your rain elixir on the sacred Bodhi tree at Bodh Gaya where Buddha was enlightened. Resurrect the ruins of Nalanda with your light rains. Replenish the reservoirs of hot springs at Rajgir and the holy Karandak pond at Venuvan, where once Buddha bathed before heading to the Gridhkud Parvat. Visit my mother in Chabilapur and give her my love. Recount all you have seen. Tell her that I'll be back soon. Recharge the waters of the lotus pond at Pavapuri, where Lord Mahavir rests in deep samadhi. Biharis will celebrate your arrival, listening to sweet old Bhojpuri songs of their kinsfolk brought by you from Mauritius and Seychelles. Farmers will start sowing paddy, singing rain songs. And here is a little bit about Bombay. So, you will be received in Kerala in June with great pageant and ceremony. People will be anxiously waiting for a glimpse of your thunder and lightning. Peasants staring at the unyielding sky, priests performing puja, chanting mantras, musicians playing rag Megh Malhar, virgins immersed waist deep in reservoirs to seduce you. People will go out in the tranquil backwaters and indulge in kettuvalams, cruises, and Ayurvedic massage, your mystical winds healing them. Suruli Falls will turn milky white with your rains. Western Ghats will stand in the way of your gusty winds, forcing you to ascend, cool, condense, and pour. Their parched lips will rise to kiss yours. Kiss your perfumed breeze. Offer them your lips in return. Hot and sultry Goa, scorched by the blazing sun, will devour the nectar of your raindrops. Fishermen will catch lobster and fish. of various kinds, abundant in the sea. Long summer will come to an end. Parched earth will be satiated with your incessant downpour. Palms will sway in your blustery winds. Goans will dance and celebrate. Fishermen will mend nets and repair boats. Fisherwomen will gather crayfish and shrimp, unable to face your waves in the open sea. Elephanta caves will reverberate with your swift winds. Lord Shiva will come alive and play his damru. Hearing your thunder drums, he will rush out in the rain and perform Anand Tandav with Parvati. Tormented and fed up with long summer heat, Mumbaiyakers will indulge in rain revelries. Entranced by the spell of your showers, they will head to various hill stations. High tides brought by your squally winds will splash all over the gateway of India. Lovers at Marine Drive will engage in love feast. Your rain showers wetting their insatiable thirst. I think that's all.
Abhay,
Wonderful, wonderful.
we'd like to talk a little about what led to Monsoon. You have, of course, written a very elaborate introduction to this, but for all of us here and for those of us who will hear us in the future, what led to Monsoon?
Thank you so much for all of you for listening and for your kind words. I'm so happy to share, this poem with you. During the pandemic, I happened to read a poem called "Lockdown" by Simon Armitage, and that led me to, he had mentioned Kalidas, Meghdut. He had a reference in that poem, and it inspired me to read Kalidas's Meghdut. I was planning to read it for a long time, and I could not read it. But then when I started reading it, I found that wow, it's something I really want to read and translate. So, and fortunately, I had studied Sanskrit, so it all started coming back, and I started translating Meghdut. And then uh, once I did that, then I ended up translating Ritu Samhara, which is the six seasons, and also by Kalidas. And both these books, so I thought that, why not to combine these two, both Meghdut and Ritu Samhara, uh, the Cloud Messenger and the Six Seasons by the 5th century Indian poet. Those of you who don't know about Kalidas, he's a 5th century Indian poet, and his words are, he seems to me a contemporary as an eco poet. So it was his focus on plants and animals and clouds, and using clouds as a messenger to send his message, or you can say his character, which is a yaksha, uh, mm, who has been banished in central India. To say, he requests the cloud to take his message to his newly married wife in the city of Alkapuri, which is in the Himalayas, mythical city of Alkapuri. So so I was in Madagascar, and I realized I studied geography in my college. So I realized that monsoon is actually born. It originates near Madagascar in a place called Mascarenhai, and travels all the way from here to the Himalayas. And I very carefully studied its path, like how does it go, and and studied the flora and fauna, the plants and animals which are found on its path, and thought that I could have an imaginary lover in Kashmir and can send her a message. So so this is how I've been able to combine my previous book, like The Magic of Madagascar, is all about the flora and fauna of Madagascar, actually. So I was anyway working on the Madagascar's flora and fauna, and so I thought that I'll extend it to the whole path of the monsoon. So and then I ended up not only including flora and fauna, which Kalidas does, but I have also expanded it by including the cuisine, the monuments, the cultural, I mean, traditions, languages, and I mean, there's so many. I mean, I mean, later I realized that there are so many, references here. So you have the diaspora references, because see, Madagascar has lots of Gujarati diaspora, while Mauritius has Bihari diaspora and South Indian diaspora. Seychelles has, Tamil diaspora and so on. So I found, and then you have references to various. Mm, you have here all the main spiritual tradition. You have Buddhism, you have Christianity, you have Jainism, and so on. I mean, Islam, and so on. So Hinduism. So all these kind of combined, and then I mean, I was so delighted to find there is a place called Monsoon Palace in Rajasthan, and there's also a place called Cloud Palace. So I mean, this book is full of monuments and also music. I mean, the music which is inspired by monsoon. For example, Rag, Megh Malhar, or there's one forgotten monsoon raga which was used earlier in during the time of the Mughals, but then now it has been forgotten. So all these things come together, and I was surprised how it all came together and fit in. And monsoon, I mean, Kalidas Meghdut is 111 stanzas of 4 lines each. This is because I have tried to combine and both Ritu Samhar, I mean the Cloud Messenger, and the 6 seasons, and also expanded the geography. So it's become a bit bigger, but it's like a bit larger. But now it's a poem of 150 stanzas, 4 lines each, not rhyming
Wonderful,
lines.
wonderful, Abhay. You have done miracles, I think, and also the boldness of your poetry. I am aware of. I remember your book, A New Brazilian Poetry, isn't it? So you have that smartness and boldness of the Latin American Gharana tradition, and you traveled a lot. Wherever you travel, you got the input from that. And someone was talking about, I think Kashiana was referring to your nouns, and I think that is a fascinating journey to read your poems. Thank you, Abhay, for gracing us. Wonderful, wonderful. Monsoon as a long, long poem. More power to
Thank
your
you.
pen and thought.
Thank you so much for listening to me and the
Yeah,
opportunity. Thank you, Basundhara.
thank you. We'll connect again. Thank you so much. And
Thank you.
from there, we move on to the US, Kashiana Singh. And I think this is another important book that we are going to listen to, and that is Kashiana's latest book of poems. And Kashiana is known to all of us from India, living in the US, and embodies her TDX talk theme, work as worship into her everyday. She is a management professional by definition, but a work or poet practitioner by personal preference. Kashiana, we are looking forward to listen to you. Over to Kashiana.
Thank you. Thank you. You can hear me fine? Yeah. I don't know how to follow Abhay, but Abhay, that was absolutely stunning work and inspiring as well. Thank you for creating it. And I know it's hard to sustain ideas like that. I'm sure it took a lot to sustain it. So thank you for sustaining through that idea and creating Monsoon. for us. I don't have a copy, but I'm going to order a copy right after this. Joydeep sir and Basudhara, thank you for having me, and being on the panel along with all these other stunning poets is humbling, but also validating to some extent. So thank you for bringing Woman by the Door here. I'll probably jump in and read something that I'd initially not thought about, but I'm inspired by the seasonal references that we've had since the start of this session. It's the first poem in Woman by the Door, and it's called Homesick. And before I jump in, I want to make sure Paresh hears me say this. This is haiku inspired. I nowhere claim to be a perfectionist as far as writing haiku is concerned, but I'm absolutely a fan and learning along the way. So this is a haiku inspired set of poems. Homesick. Alfonso, bearing the legacy of colonization. Alfonso, bearing the legacy of colonization. Basant, an edible canopy of fiery blossoms. Basant, an edible canopy of fiery blossoms. Fallen mangoes, I bottle pickles in opaque jars. Fallen mangoes, I bottle pickles in opaque jars. Scorching sun, serpentine rose of tangy green. Scorching sun, serpentine rose of tangy green. Childhood, season's first mango offered in prayer. Childhood, season's first mango offered in prayer. Fragrant mornings, I can still taste a simmering chutney. Fragrant mornings, I can still taste a simmering chutney. Summer nights, endless stories, and mangoes. Summer nights, endless stories, and mangoes. I'll shift to the poem I'd initially thought I'll start with. This one was for Abhay and Basudhara and all your references to the season this morning, but I'll jump to the poem that's one of my favorites, and it's called Pagri Turbans, and it's in honor of today being Father's Day. For anybody who has the book, it's on page 48 of the book. One second, I'm pulling it up. Pagri turbans. And I won't offer any context, the poem speaks for itself. All my writing was born into the folds of my father's pagri, one in each fold of his khaki, cotton, starched, smooth, sturdy. I attempted to shape stanzas with my tongue while my hands pulled, stretched, unbound all the 6 yards of cloth, unfurling beginnings. I proudly held at one end on mornings when I was called upon to help twist the length. The landscape of that moment had a spirituality, a gravitas. It snatched at my throat, settling into creased circles. My voice had so much to say. Instead, in quiet observation, I gave it all my care, all my curiosity. His prayer had a very specific tempo. I never dared disturb it. I saw an intimate conversation sprouting into the empty spaces of teacher and disciple unsaid. A sacred hum became audible. I heard stories being revealed as elders sang hymns in waves, gentle metaphors were formed in faith. As a circular wrapping folded and unfolded words, they became mine, unborn into me as I held the fabric taut was taught letters. I held the fabric taut was taught letters, my fingers at the edge of a long pagri. He so reticently pulled at the other. Tugging just so, he said to me, each time we symmetrically styled a turban in performance together. Tugging just so, he said to me, each time we symmetrically styled a turban in performance together, you, my daughter, my poem. Pagri, turbans. And I know Joydeep, sir, you've heard this earlier as well. This was in the yearbook of English poetry last year as well. But that's just one of my favorites, and hopefully for all fathers out there today. I'll move on and change the tone a little and speak about a poem that I haven't read in a while, but I want to, and that's called Lotus Gaze. And it's on page 62 and speaks to the election and our representative, Kamala Harris. Your lotus gaze. Your birthing is of unusual intervals, your equanimity afloat on aftermaths, your resistance rises in imperfections, your voice is made of seasonless earth, you unpick whiteness with your shadows. Make it blush with quietness of colors, your petals close gently over each word, each tongue a memory bleeding azure in its veins, bird songs perch on upright spines. Even as you wait inside pods of 1,000 simmering, shimmering seeds. Each seed drowning into history, rising towards a vision of awkward blooming. Million lotus suns ready to be released. I urge her, this America, to receive. I urge her, this America, to receive, to be absent enough, to be vacant enough, to be still enough, to let her fault lines show hurt enough, to be tall enough, to be Shyamala Gopalan enough, to be innocent enough, to wear a crown made with flowers that are not flowers enough, to walk far, to walk deep into discomfort enough, to change enough, to be upside down enough, to be capable of ovations enough, open arms enough, to be America enough. To face square and fair the frugal dawn of a moist lotus gaze present between both water and earth. This was written for Kamala Harris, wishing her perspective as she started her journey a couple of months or a few years ago. I think I have time, Basudara.
One more poem, one more.
All right, I will choose. Let me
And
do
you'll
grief.
also conclude with talking about, Woman by the Door and
Sure.
what led to Woman by the Door.
Yep. I'm going to read a poem that is Grief in a Portly on page 82. So bringing back to something that we'll talk about, what Woman by the Door entails a little later, but one second. Right. This is Grief in a Portly, and like I said, it's on page 74. Grief in a Portly. Breathing in the cold today, I felt your weight on my eyelids. A sullen sky yawns into the horizon, stretching awake as it stares at the robin, her eyes in gridlock with the tinted regret of gods. Starlings meditate inside murmurations, methodical, leaving behind a stilled tale of coaxed departures. Starlings meditate inside murmurations, leaving behind a stilled tale of coaxed departures. I can hear the season turn. Shadows fall in patterns of immensities outside. You insisted on leaving behind howls of open exit wounds gathered into portalies of my mother's erased smiles. You insisted on leaving behind howls of open exit wounds gathered into portalies of my mother's erased smiles. Grief in a portly. Thank you.
And a few lines about Woman by the Door. How does this lovely book, figure in your consciousness? And what do you think that it has been speaking to the world about?
Yeah, like the cover says for itself, the book crosses in and out of thresholds. There's the woman, there's the door, and then there's the dahliz or the doorway or the portal. And this book, the poems within the book, and my own self travels in and out of that space. It's a collection that crystallized over the last 10 years, which is what the book introduces itself as. Beginning to crystallize when I got my life and moved from India to the US with a young daughter. The poems in the collection, like I said, travel into the doorway many spaces before and after. Besides creating home in a new country, when surviving long-distance relationships, there was also a realization that personal loss is exaggerated by distance, but it also provides perspective with the distance, which allows one to present the event differently and with a completely different perspective, as well as with different language. As a woman, there was bodily transition, growing into menopause. I was also through that period, remember, both India and United States has gone through geopolitical situations that led to some of the poems you just heard as well. In terms of what it has done for me and what it's bringing to the world, one of the poems in this book, which was very personal and I was very hesitant about, is called, I didn't read it today, but Basudhara, you're aware of it, and it's called In My Nani's House, Curds and Whey Were Religion. It's surprising to me how much that poem, which is very rooted in my background, right? It's rooted in what I bring to the table in terms of themes and identity, is resonating with readers across different cultures, different geographies. And that to me is what this book is doing. It's given me the permission and the fortitude to remember and transmit aspects of my own background. But it's also validated that poetry, like Joydeep sir said at the beginning, is a global movement that can break down barriers, even if it's through something as simple as events and moments inside a kitchen. In a nutshell, like I said, the poem gathers poems about memory, it's about grief, but there's hope, and the themes are very personal but universal and stand at that dahliz threshold, hoping to make its way in and out of people's hearts and minds and leaving some impact in terms of creating universality and community, which is what you're trying to do through this gathering today, Vasudhara.
Thank you so much. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for wonderful poems that we could listen to.
Thank you.
Over to Vasudhara to introduce Paresh.
Yes. So our next poet is Paresh. Poet, writer, artist, and editor Paresh Tiwari has been widely published, especially in the subgenre of Japanese poetry. A Pushcart Prize nominee, he has published two widely acclaimed collections of poetry, An Inch of Sky and Raindrops Chasing Raindrops. The second collection was the recipient of the Touchstone Distinguished Books Awards 2017. He has co-edited the landmark international Haibun anthology, Red River Book of Haibun, Volume 1, and The Shape of a Poem, the Red River Book of Contemporary Erotic Poetry. He has read his works at various literary festivals, and we really look forward to him reading from his latest collection, Now a Poem, Now a Forest. And before Paresh decides to read, I want to usurp his poem Translating Rain and read a few lines from it, just keeping in line with the monsoon and the mangoes that Abhay and Kashiana have brought in. I'll just read one stanza, Paresh, and then you can read the rest of the poem if you wish. Rain remembers falling, wobbling in the throat of a chatak, sloshing at the feet of a young girl. Rain remembers the time it wasn't, when the womb of its cloud was empty, and when the rain comes down, it's a tapestry of mist and desire. And with this, I invite Paresh to introduce his poems, which are Sometimes Lush Forests. Over to you, Paresh.
Thank you, Basudhara. Thank you so much, Joydeep sir, for inviting me. Thank you, Abhay, for that wonderful reading of Monsoon. It's a ambitious, beautifully done work. And Kashiana, what can I say? I'm an absolute fan of your work. So thank you for reading us. And Basudhara, you won't believe I had chosen a different poem to obviously start the evening, but then Abhay read Monsoon and Kashiana followed, chimed in, and I thought that I'll start the evening with translating Rain, and you served that from me. So thank you so much for doing that. What I'll do is I'll continue with the plan and read Translating Rain to begin. Translating Rain. The window is a wound pried open, and when the rain comes down, it's a traveler of new roads. The rain song hovers over the neon neckline of Bombay, hangs from leaves and street lamps, unshod, lost, orphaned in the city of vertical cardiograms. Sitting across each other, there are no words to place on our tongues to say that we can only make love in approximation, in the irrationality of never quite there. You reach out and take my hand, guiding it along one breadcrumb at a time to your breasts, rising and falling. Rain remembers falling, wobbling in the throat of a chatak, flushing under the feet of a young girl. Rain remembers the time it wasn't, when the womb of its cloud was empty. And when the rain comes down, it's a tapestry of mist and desire. Your name is half moon on my lips, whispered in Nastaliq. The arch of your back, the gentle curve of a Ming bowl, blue. Blue is still the softness of your moan stretching over 7 syllables, each with a life of its own. Sometimes the distance between two breaths could be a way to measure eternity. Rain knows eternity. It's a child leaping over culverts, a deluge of laughter and wings, and a rallying cry of dissent. And when the rain comes down, it soaks into the lime-washed walls, now a map of smudged borders. Now a map of smudged borders. That was Translating Rain. And as the evening has already been shaping up, I'll read a poem that I wrote for my son and in a way pay a tribute to Father's Day today. This one is called The Salt of Things. The salt of things. You come back an ocean. You come back an ocean vast, unpredictable, blue. 4 boots unmoved over your chest. 4 boats unmoved over your chest. You come back holding silence in your ears, the way sky holds its grain. A primordial roar cradled within this conscience. Your feet now end in beaches, white, boundless, meeting the horizon of your stoic journey. Each finger is now a coral, growing an inch every decade. In those in-between years, I spoke about you as if you were still here, like I still needed to worry about the cut of bread in your lunchbox. Now that you're back,
I seek the cleft of your chin, bleached for eons under the unrelenting sun. Your skin is salt and wetness and sand. Your skin is salt and wetness and sand, crab holes breeding constellations. Your hair is shoal colonized by angelfish. They dart out when the moon is half, when the night has only just begun. This moon was once an accomplice, the easy melody of a lullaby. Dragonflies, the way we skitter around topics. Dragonflies, the way we skitter around topics, you come back and your eyes are islands, floating over the sweep of clear blue, untouched, wild, distant. And I wonder which boat will ferry me back to you. Ellipses measuring the stillness of every pause. Ellipses measuring the stillness of every pause. So I'd like to change the format a little, Basudhara. Instead of talking about how the book came about in the end, I'll talk about how the book came about here and then probably read the poem and end the reading.
Wonderful. Please, yes.
Right. So this book is, in my mind, is not just a collection of poems. It's part fiction, part memoir. It has been written to read as a story unfolding. Right from the very beginning, you unfold, you meet a character. It is in parts, in a lot of parts, it is confessional. But there are poems in this which have happened only in my head, and I wonder if that makes them untrue. Just like how in Harry Potter it is said, of course it's happening in your head, Harry, but why should that make it any less true? So this book has, for me, has unfolded like that. Through this, I've talked about the geopolitical situation that has unfolded. I've talked about the places I have been. I have talked about the things that I felt and things that I also expect to feel. They haven't really happened yet. Like Salt of Things was me transposing myself 20 years down the line, and meeting my son probably after a long period of time, like I do with my father. And that's how I have, extrapolated parts of it. But the whole idea was to place the book in a context beyond my life, from looking at the macro from the micro. So that's how, and the title is in a way an ode to the first and the last poem, and how a poem like Joydu sir has said, and Kashiana has already commented on it, becomes a movement. So that's what the title of the book stands for, right? With this, I'll read the last poem for today, also the poem with which the book opens. It's titled How to Kill a Poet. How to Kill a Poet, after Arun Pulakkar. One bullet in the head will never be enough. One bullet in the head will never be enough. You should start with the forest in my beard. Cut down the trees. Their roots have taken hold of my bones. Dig through the mountain on my back. Travelers climb its peak in search of me. Lasso the clouds, pull them down, and known to be red. Chain the rivers till they all dry up to a drop. What about the sanctuary in my chest? Snap the wings of the birds that dare their songs carry over the barbed wires. slit the deer's throat, hunt the wolves. There's a sword for every lion in your armory. Forests often grow back from a single seed. Pour salt on my skin. Make sure my soil remains barren, barren for centuries to come. Cross-stitch my lips. I need to learn to bear the weight of silence. Crush my fingers, break open the skull of my pen, tear up the poems that breathe, those that love and heal, and those that raise their voices. And if all else fails, stab me in the womb, scrape out my flesh, and burn it like a stick.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Over
Thank
to Vashudhara to invite Pramila. Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paresh. That was wonderful and so good to listen to the poems and also to hear about the interpretation of the book, how it came about. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
We move over to Pramila and yes, Pramila is visible now. Okay, so Pramila is the Poet Laureate of Suffolk County, Long Island, and she's the co-director of Matwala, South Asian Diaspora Poetry Festival. She's the author of Teeth Behind Dark Waters, Draw Me Inmost, Trace, 13 Days to Let Go, Slow Ripening, and a number of wonderful publications. She has performed poetry internationally, and she teaches English and Women's Studies at New York. She's author of numerous essays on poetics, creative nonfiction, and we are immensely grateful that Pramila has consented to share her wonderful book and her wonderful poems with us on this particular evening. I'll just, read out one particular section from Pramila's poem that is titled The Long Journey. And I'll just read out a stanza. The earth carried the smell of trees, the light of the moon under which she prayed, the sound of water. She heard its call, come back. Centuries later, her progeny heeded its call. Hear her say, just the rocking of the body, a boat on the waters, whisper of prayers. A slight wind will us to live that day in sleep without a care. Over to you, Pramila, for your lovely poems this evening.
Thank you very much, Basudra. It's been an honor to hear you recite that poem. And thank you and Joydeep Sarangi for inviting me. And it's been really lovely to hear all the poets here, many of whom I know and some who don't, and I don't know. And I'm really eager to form a friendship with all of you. This book came about because of my interest in the Jewish people in Kerala. They've been part of my consciousness throughout my life. And in the last decade or so, I delved more into the history of Jewish people in Kerala. And I've been working steadily on this. And finally, this book was published in May. The opening poem is Exile. The other note I wanted to make is that here is a moment in Indian history where we see the peaceful coexistence of people, diverse people together, and it's something that we can treasure. Exile. Coming is always arduous. Mountains, near-death escapades, until you chalk a square space and call it home. Going happens in a split second, a bird taking wing. Once exiled from Palestine, it is hard to bear yet another exile, even if winds are fair. We have left a door open in Kerala. Its lit interior welcomes our mornings. We turn east as once we turned toward Jerusalem. If you've been to the Jewish synagogue in Cochin, it is called the Paradesi Synagogue. It was built in the 15th century. And there are, if you know a little bit of Jewish history in Kerala, the first group of Jews that came into Kerala was in the 3rd century AD. And after the Spanish Inquisition in the 15th century, you had Jews come into the area which is called Cochin, now Kochi, and they built the Paradesi synagogue. And so there are paintings when you enter the Cochin synagogue. You're not supposed to photograph them. So of course, as a child, I lived right next to the synagogue. But the thing is, I didn't really understand anything, even though I was in the synagogue. But then later, I did memorize the paintings. And so this one is called Triptych. It's an ekphrastic poem. And it's divided into 3 parts. And it has Judeo-Malayalam in some of the words. Arrival. In Cranganore, cuckoos anchor the day, bright for ivory and spices. Tusks lean whale heavy against hutment walls, luring sailors from Palestine via Yemen. Odor of fish hangs heavy. In a white dress, her shoulders caressed by sea wind, she leans against a stack of logs, watching immigrants in ochre robes navigate past basking cows and dogs to carry out business, gesturing with their hands. Beyond coconut trees and elephants, in the port, wives wait with their babies for their husbands. Another exile. Oh, the sea turns a deep blue, the blue of urgency. We don't despair. The sea has rescued us from the Portuguese, torching our homes in Cranganore, beaching us here on Cochin sands. Gifts pour in, we draw stars on wet mud, follow footprints of the Raja's men from the palace to our homes. Later, Ma Navu al Heharim, how beautiful upon the mountains, rocks us to sleep. Domestic. Sing the parrot song, she begs her mother on Purim. They dance around the room, stepping to Palo de Paramtaruvain Payangiliye. At night, the little girl dreams of her dear bird, pecking at a dessert of milk and banana. The moon's rim lights the clouds. So just like we heard from Abhay, a Sthala Purana or stories of a place, the memories that places carry, which also get transferred to the memories of people. I consider this book also a Sthala Purana, and I would like to share with you one poem that captures the Paradesi synagogue. This is called From Israel to Kochi. They have come from Israel to breathe the same air as their people once breathed. Along the sands of Kochi they walk, their eyes mirroring the slate blue sky, filling the water lined by catamarans, Chinese fishing nets and poles dividing sunsets and sunrises. They have come from Israel to turn over their ancestors' sacred goblets and vases in their hands, feel the Torah handled through many services, taste the Shabbat meal served on banana leaves, rich rice, fish korambe, pineapple wedges. They have come from Israel to walk Jew town that winds past the aqua walls of shops selling oriental carpets and trinkets towards the clock tower, grind grainy sand of the synagogue compound under their bare heels as they look up at the roof of sky, feel the cool blue printed Chinese tiles gaze at the gold pulpit with its velvet drape around the slim gold pillars, raise their eyes to square prints on the ceiling, glass chandeliers like fiery trees, silk drapery against the walls, colored globes of glass waiting to be lit. Yes, they have come from Israel to decipher symbols on abandoned pillars, scratch paint to a surprise of Hebrew lettering, discover old synagogue walls and Jewish homes behind the commercial buzz of Kochi. Do they know now the comfort of succor among the tumult of the market, in the lazy rocking of the boats on dreamy water, in noon stillness before the arrival of crows? So that is the Paradesi synagogue, which I went to very recently again. And it is still an active synagogue. It is, they have services, just like the synagogue in Ernakulam, even though there's been a gradual migration of Jewish people from Cochin into Israel starting in 1948. And I'd like to end with two more poems. So since it's Father's Day, maybe I should read this poem. This is a letter from father to a son, and the son replies, "Dear Papa, I'm enjoying the swift pace of Bombay, its British-built trains slithering in different directions from Victoria Terminus. I can set my watch by their arrivals and departures, but I miss the slow pace of home, carrying us through morning blessings of pomfret in the market, Alia's endless tirades, fresh fishermen dragging home their trove, evening prayers in the synagogue, Ammai's fish korambu, rice and appam. Here I mostly eat pav bhaji and puri sabji in an Iranian restaurant opposite my bank. I found a synagogue here. Although the service is in Marathi, it is the only place that feels like home. Tell Ammai I will visit during the high holidays. Affectionately, Noah." I'll end with this poem. This is called Against Erasure. Again, you have so many different languages mixing in. Like here, I have one line in German, because again, Cochin has become like a tourist destination, so you have a lot of Germans visiting. And then I also have, a line from Hebrew, and then a line from Sanskrit. I'm sorry, not Hebrew, Judeo-Malayalam. It is a song that is still sung by Jewish people in Kerala. But the thing is, the context explains all the meanings. Against Erasure, the epigraph is from Nathan Katz, "Next year in Cochin." So basically, Nathan Katz sort of, he does a riff on "next year in Jerusalem," which is a very common saying among Jewish people. He changes that into "next year in Cochin." Years ago, I had left Cochin, and I returned when its name changed to Kochi. Her Jewish people are a fine lacework as waves recede. If you find a jawbone in the new foundation, please return it to the rightful owner for reburial. Ich habe überall gesucht, yells a young woman, cycling hard to keep up with her partner. Maybe they're looking for a restaurant, but the German grates eerily against the refrain, Enni Enni Tirtha Dinam, still sung celebrating British departure from Palestine in 1948. Someone says, "We are lucky to have a minyan." On my way to the service, a shopkeeper begs, "You will look beautiful in this scarf, auntie." I bark, "Do I look like your auntie?" I do the touristy thing. I buy a thumb length of lace for $200 because I believe it is the last of its kind, made by two octogenarian Italian weavers. I imagine a bride wearing their artwork, serenaded by percussion and pipes. My bones are as creaky as those ferry boats, an elderly man complains. Tired of repeating his story, I ask him why the Chinese tiles in the Paradesi synagogue show ships like ballooning sails, show ships with ballooning sails, the pandemonium of commerce, willow and monasteries lining exotic shores. Those are holy too, he says. I recall, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, everywhere is Brahman. We are racing against time, intone anthropologists, archiving every letter and coin, for memory is unreliable. My eyes hungrily scan fragments of the past, mixed with the present. I know when the ferry drops me off on the opposite shore, words will evade my pen. Thank you.
Wonderful,
Thank
wonderful, wonderful, wonderful,
Thank
Those were
you.
wonderful poems, yes.
wonderful.
And we are carried into the land of, the South India
Kerala.
and the Jews. And
Wonderful.
you rightly pointed out that this was a Sthal Purana. So wonderful. Thank you for sharing this with us. And from here, we move over to Raphael. And Raphael, are you there?
Sure. Can you
Oh,
see
yes.
me? Can you hear me?
Right. Now, yes, I do. So, Raphael is a writer, poet, scholar, editor, translator, and the author of 4 poetry collections. He's an honorary research fellow at the Human Sciences Research Council, the poetry editor of BKO Literature and Poetry magazine, and the South Africa representative of Africa Haiku Network. But we are very happy, Raphael, that you are with us to share poems from your wonderful book, Collected Poems, that is recently out. It's recently translated, and perhaps you will tell us all about it as you read poems from there. Over to you, Raphael.
Thank you, Basudara. Thank you also, Jaydeep, for inviting me. It's really an honor to be here, especially after listening to the poets that came before me. I'm really impressed. So thank you for having me today. And so I will read from this book, which is a book of selected poems of mine, published between 2010 and 2020. They've been featured in my 3 poetry collections. The first one being Sunnyside Nightwalk. The second is titled Saltwater. And the third one, published in 2018, was The Bitter Herb. And these poems have been selected and translated by the Italian poet Lorenzo Mari. So the book comes in 2 languages, comes with the original in English and the front page translation in Italian. So I will read one poem from each of the 3 collections, and I'm very glad that the poems that I had chosen resonate with the poems that my colleagues read before me. So the first one is the title poem from the first collection, Sunnyside Nightwalk. Sunnyside being a neighborhood in Pretoria inhabited mostly by African immigrants, where I lived from 2008 to 2030. Sunnyside Nightwalk. A rusty lamps throw a weary tower over the street corner. I sit on the bench and share some words with Alan, my brother from Burundi. He's a street vendor. He's got 2 public phones, sells candies, matches, chips, and even single Rieslas in case of emergency. He's trying to make a living and raise his 2 kids between the cops' raids and the xeno-idiotic threats of some local Afrophobiacs. King Shaka would be ashamed of these modern age fighters, and Don Quixote will pity them. Apart from this, Alan is doing fine. His babies are sleeping now. They're dreaming of tomorrow's crash where they be playing all day with the policeman's kids. I salute Alan as 3 skinny cats jump out from a deserted building. Look at me with disdain. It must be my long beard and my tattered shirt, or maybe they have more urgent things to think about, like finding a way to catch that bloody bird. They have skipped too many meals this week. Ribs don't lie, and the night-cutting wind reminisce of how fragile they are. I kick dreams away as a washed-out pack of knickknacks wheels down the sidewalk and arrogantly lands over my ragged tennis shoes. Littering is fascism, and I just can't stand ignorance, knickknacks, and dirt. Drunk screams from the flats across the road. From under a leafless tree, the glittering shadow of a knife blinking in the shrieky winter fog. Business as usual smiles the flashy net bank billboard over the razor-wired fence. The umpteenth sickening sound of police sirens rips the moistened sky in two. It stiffened the mallow along my squeaking spine while needles sting the midpoint of my frozen ass. It reminds me that it's time to go home, and I agree, even if I don't have one. I walk around the corner, find a seat at Sipo's Tavern, pull up my overcoat, pull down my beret, and order another beer. It's the penultimate one for today. Migration has been a theme running through the poem, so I'm happy that I chose that one. The second is titled New Questions, and it's from the second collection, Salt Water. New questions. Africa is the center of the world. At the center of Africa, a village. At the center of that village, a house. At the center of that house, a man at a table. At the center of that table, the book is reading. At the center of that book, these verses. Anch'io ricordo, ma passò stagione. Quelle bacche agli uccelli della frasca invidiavo, e le purpuree more. E l'ala, i cieli, i boschi, la canzone. At the center of those verses, a comma. At the center of that comma, new questions. And I will also close with one last poem. Maybe if there is time, I will read an extra one. It is on the tree that I had chosen at the beginning. And again, because it's Father's Day, I will read a poem titled Father and Daughter from the Bitter Herb. The epigraph is by Malika Ndlovu, and it says, the river was an immortal mother. Once I took my daughter up the mountain to watch the wolves running. I always enjoy dipping back into this memory as it becomes yarn, string, or thread. How would you spend the next 100 years if you knew they were your last? I asked her. By asking, what am I great at? What can I give to the world? She said. Baking cupcakes, playing cards, and searching for gold, she added. 5 years later, still searching, with simplicity, she reminded me to always ease the moment. Somewhere deep inside my soul, a tiny bone shattered. The change was subtle, but awakened my interest in butterflies and buds. After all she gave to me, I needed to honor her, and it had to be done through a poem. I went looking for her, and found her sitting on a riverbank waiting for me. The river was staring at her. It followed her guiding eyes. Fish were surfacing like memories of childhood days, to take pieces of bread from her cupped hands. Thank you.
Thank you, Raphael, for those extremely beautiful poems. You were planning to read an extra poem?
I don't know how am I time-wise.
Please. Yes,
One
more,
more.
please do.
One more.
Sure.
Okay, this one, J. Deep knows it because he published it in Muse India. It's titled Middle Sea Blues, another migration poem. Middle Sea Blues. Ghost-like, we sneak into the underground corridors of your safe existence, eager to catch bits of sun with our broken fishnets. Lighthouses illuminate the transparent walls of our life stories. As the wind steals our memories and abandons them on the waterfronts that left us the day we left them. The seagulls and the waves on whose wings we travel vanish behind clouds in the twilight breeds like drumbeats do. We've been crossing seas, deserts, and borders, like our ancestors did, like our children will do. We keep on moving towards the unknown. Middle seas have been swallowing us, and in their belly we have learned how to sing the blues. We are still here today to sing it back to you, and when it is too hard to sing it, we hide it inside a smile.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Raphael. That last piece is very, very exquisite. Thank you so much. And with this, we move over to Zena. Zena has this disadvantage of having her name start with a Z, and therefore alphabetically Zena always comes last. Next time, Zena,
Next time we start from
remind-
the last.
Yeah.
We start from Z.
Next time we're going to begin with you if you are here. So wonderful. Yes, and we are celebrating Zena's Sanctum and also her Beyond Spice, which has been recently relaunched. So Zena John has authored two collections of mystical poetry, Beyond Spice and Sanctum. She's an international diplomatic events consultant with a focus on development issues globally, as well as a psychic medium, trance channeler, spiritual healer, and a guest speaker on various radio stations. And I'll just, read one short poem from Zena's Sanctum. It's called Goddess Mine. Meenakshi, Kali, Durga, Saraswati, Lakshmi, Mary, you voice my thoughts, animate my limbs, lash electricity to flesh, oozing divinity in action. Through lightning bolts of love, your power hypnotizes while Shiva dreams. Another planet is pushed through the cosmic birthing channel. And I will leave Zena to, read out her splendid poetry to you. Over to you, Zena.
Oh, thank you so much, Basudhara. I actually was going to start with that. That's always my favorite. But thank you to all the wonderful poets and poetesses. I was enthralled by your words, by the music in your voices. And before I go on into my poems, I would like to say there are not just 6 poets here with new collections, there are 8. So Basudhara has just released her Inhabited, and I know that Joy Deep is also about to release a collection. So if we may, I'm not going to be too long because I write very short poems. Would both of you share a poem at least from your collections? And it's such a wonderful, gracious gesture that you honor the 6 of us and you very quietly subdue your own books and accomplishments. So I know the others would also love to hear that. So please just bear that in mind. Okay, so I have the ebook up since the book is not in print yet. It's just available on Amazon. And I think the second poem I'm going to read is called The Fragile Power of Soul. The gentle whispers of your inner being becomes an avalanche of messages until you wake up to your own self-realization. Know that you are part of the cosmic shift. Dancing in your veins are millennia of stardust. An elbow may have been fashioned in one universe, an eye in another dimension. The nanoparticles that you grew from belong to eternity. You, dearest children, are star seeds. Before I get into the next one, just want to say that I consider myself an accidental poet, and I think there's a bit of a departure in my poems compared to everyone else's. I think mine are less worldly, so I hope that it resonates with some of you in some way. The next poem that I've chosen is called Free Fall. So just bear with me as I get to it. Free Fall. Allowing fragments of old lives to linger into my soul space. They bring their warmth, love, laughter, and sunshine back into gloomy hearts. Searching for wisps of light among the living, these beautiful souls stretch time frames. They pause life while they traverse the land of the living once more, flinging love bites among the divine wisdom of ages before retreating into the void again. I'd like to add that these poems come from my connection with the other side, higher consciousness, divinity, beyond the veil, whatever we choose to call it. And these snippets of wisdom come through me and they find themselves landing on a page and becoming a poem. So sometimes against my wishes, they become poems. Okay, let's just find the next one. Ascent. The universal light pours in through my veins, jostling the materialist side, infusing my inner path with knowledge a heartbeat away, freeing my vessel from its moor of flesh and blood. I soar upwards and outwards, expanding myself to include all selves. Oh, the futility of seeing the other when all is I. Okay, let's just go. I've got 2 or 3 more. I'll try not to be too long. If I'm taking time, please let me know. Vasudhara, am I still okay?
Perfect. Please go ahead.
Okay.
We're all ears.
Okay, freedom from self. Freedom from self marks the start of the journey, the steadfast ripping away of layers of human dust, the ripening of the blossoming seed, the call to connect at soul level to the source, to become one with all and nothing. I can't even read what I wrote. Let's just get here. Okay, thanks for your patience. Okay, out of nothingness. Out of nothingness we emerged, life flooding our cells as we magically grew limbs, vessels, muscles, skin holding it all in, energy radiating from our new bodies, oblivious to the master puppeteer, skillfully creating through DNA strands whole civilizations populating new worlds. From thought to sound, planets arose, solar systems flared, dark matter cloaks a magical journey. The gods were out to play. 36. Okay, just 2 more and then hand you back to our divine coordinators. Sound, glorious sound. Sound, glorious sound, the drum beats that staccato through your veins, creating ripples of light as you breathe. Children of all species, you owe everything to sound. I created all universes from sound. Sound is the beginning and ending of it all. Light is the shadow of sound. And finally, I'll read the titular poem called Sanctum. Sanctum, surging waterfalls of energy, dance along my spine, electrifying cells and space. The material vessel melts. The void embraces me home. In this nothingness, all is revealed. My timeless form undulates in waves. And that's the end of the reading. I think there were just way too many poems. Just to say that my daughter has illustrated for Sanctum, and she's also created the cover of the book. Thank you, Vasudhara and Joydeep, for this wonderful, amazing opportunity. Now over to you, because we would love to hear your poetry.
Wonderful, and convey our congratulations to your daughter as well for your wonderful book cover. And so thank you, Zena. It was wonderful feast of ideas and feast to our ears, sweet tone.
Oh, thank you.
Brilliant cadence. So Vasudhara, may we invite Vasudhara to read a poem from her latest collection, Inhibiting. Yeah, Vasudhara, one poem.
Yes. So, okay, I was just looking for a poem, and I hope this is a short one that I'll read. It's titled In Love. In love, I ask you to become the sky, so I may enter as I am, without needing to forego parts of myself, so that each time I gaze upwards, it's you I find, blue, endless, unprejudiced, your depths unfathomable, unfilled, so that no matter what worlds I am denied, I know your arms await, tireless, patient, benign. I promise in return to be the earth, so you know your altitude has a base, to grow unceasingly from green to red to mellow in waiting, so you may be stirred to unblow awakening of time's song. To keep beckoning through mountain silence, rivers laughter, trees limbs, so your solitude remains a season, not year long. It's true, we may never meet, but there'll be too much between us to leave. Our horizon of promise, though illusory, as undeniable as night, gradually dissolving into the arms of day. Thank you. That was In Love from Inhabiting. And Jaideep sir's latest collection, Letters in Lowercase, is awaited. And it has a number of rain poems because I have seen the manuscript. And so that we can end on the note with which Abhay began, I would invite Jaideep sir to read a rain poem from his forthcoming book, Letters in Lowercase.
I don't know why to thank you, Vasudhara, and thank you all brilliant, brilliant poets. You are the soul makers. For you, we all survive. I don't know. I am always haunted by two things from nature. One is rains, another is river. So here is a small rain poem from my upcoming book of poems, Letters in Lowercase. Title, Rains in My Garden of Dreams. May. It arrived late last night. Something is yet to happen. Something seems to get lost. Again, in the quiet half darkness, I struggle to keep my good spirit as my erratic watch lingers. I hurt my hands to pauses, raindrops looking out the old window. In rain, every small sound defines a hermit's early morning chants. I see you in the night's loneliness. My world acquires a pillow. You begin with the same, between skin and skin. Under the clearing sky, my heart holds lunar eclipse in a gesture of surrender. Like a small baby, the heart where the rain opens. My blood moves within me, rains in my heart, lushly green. Thank you, thank you, thank you from the all amazing voices, starting with Abhay K to Vasudhara. It was really a feast of consonants, vowels, sounds, references, images. What a delightful evening it was from Indian part, and morning and afternoon in different time zones. Hearth Within is committed to poetry as a part of movement. Through poetry, we want to reach out all hearts of the world, hearts residing in different homes and houses. Thank you, everybody, for making it very, very special. It's for you, it was possible. For you, the poetry will connect and search for more hearts. Thank you so much. Thank you, all champion poets.
Thank
Write
you.
more,
Thank you,
write
guys.
more.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Vasudhara.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Thank
George.
you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for poetry.